to see somebody willing to make a future setting, and they just don't take that easy joke. Like, just once, I want to see a robot do the Charleston.
That sounds dangerous. Bit of collateral damage in the streets.
It's the most dangerous Charleston.
Speaking of dangerous, I do want to see if Global Esports can really make this quad DPS work. It's been one of those kind of compositions that so far has been middling success, I'd describe it, for GE.
Yeah, I mean, most of their success has been on 3-3, but honestly, so far, they've got off to a reasonable start, haven't quite made any kills, but there's the groundwork being done as Savage is able to bump a number of members into the air, but counter trades are potentially coming in. No, Luminous A's and Sadistics down at the same time, plus the residency on Flux means all but secured here for Global Esports.
This is exactly how you want to be aggressing with this DPS comp as well. LYNX unopposed on the side. No one's looking at him. He's getting so much free damage and picking up 3 or 4 kills. Pulse Bomb available as well. Expecting Global Esports to now just snowball directly onto B. In fact, LYNX is already looking for early positioning.
As he should be. He's got a Pulse Bomb at his disposal. Babakudi also coming up on a Rocket Barrage. These aren't the ideal ultimates to take a point with, but if you can get a couple of kills in with them, then you can still keep that snowballing lead.
Well, the one you really want is the EMP. Everything else is a bit of a bonus here, but the EMP is what kind of secures things, and as long as LYNX is undetected here, he maybe snipe something with a Pulse Bomb. That's ideal as well.
Oh, sticks one onto Panties. That's going to be massive. Was maybe going to go for Sadistic, but honestly saw a better opportunity than the Rocket Barrage on the side. Going to be able to pick up 3 members even, 2 of those being very critical tanks. That's going to be a gong to ring out just about. Panties had respawned, but Global Esports are all over this point like a rash, and Panties isn't even going to be able to get back over that rash. And with that, Global Esports are looking to snowball this one straight through, over 6 minutes remaining on the clock.
Panties didn't even get a chance to use the Cryo Freeze there, couldn't even put himself in an invulnerable state to maybe wait a bit longer, stay alive, couldn't even get back onto the point. Really heartbreaking, and just the target selection there from LYNX as well, putting it on the Zenyatta player, kind of removing the ability for that Transcendence to maybe come through. Not that he had it, but the potential that, hey, if he does get it in the fight, if he stays alive long enough, that's something that can maybe turn things around. It sort of staggers the point out as well, stalls things out for that defensive side, but Global Esports kind of opening that door, then slamming it shut straight away.
One of the little sort of minute details you might not have noticed there actually is as that Rocket Barrage was coming out, Saijin God was being hacked, so he couldn't turn around and get in the face of the Pharaoh like you would ideally want to do on that D.Va. So a little bit of a micro play there that actually allowed for a lot of success there in Global Esports. That 3K on the Rocket Barrage honestly sealed it far more than the Pulse Bomb itself.
And that's the other thing as well, is you have the combination of those 2 ultimates coming through that despite not having the EMP, the next best thing you can do is hack the D.Va, get your Barrage and Pulse Bomb, and have them both connect, which they both did.
Yeah.
And they kind of just snowball the kills from there, and that's really all you need. The EMP is
it's 4.
Just a bit of a win button after that if it's not enough. And Giant LYNX, they kind of just rolled over there. 6 minutes and 15 on the time bank is absolutely extreme. Basically the equivalent of what we saw in Eichenwalde, but now on Volskaya.
The good news for Global Esports here is they can just fall back on 3-3. They've been winning the mirror matchup. Now that they've won with the asymmetric quad DPS against 3-3 on the offense with a huge time bank, they can just sit back in the mirror matchup and go, okay, Giant LYNX, it's time for you to step it up or we're just going to hold you.
And actually they can be in a scenario where they can get caught out if Giant LYNX decide they want to play DPS, but I'm not too sure that Giant LYNX will decide to do that.
Nope.
And Global Esports is probably feeling the same thing, which is why the confidence level to force this 3-3 is very high for the team.
Yeah, honestly, they do not mind this being the situation. First rotation here from Giant LYNX. Nobody dying. It's going to take a bit of time getting onto the point. That's where the real action will happen.
We do want to see what early damage we can see here as well, because Global Esports and Eichenwalde definitely won the neutral first, and right now it's looking the same.
Yeah, nice charge in, but isolating Sadistic means suddenly the levy breaks here, and I don't know how many of these members are going to make it back. It's a long walk to spawn, and Luminous A is getting drilled down, will eventually die here, surely. It may be Bumbarapa the only one to get back, and even then, maybe not him.
Zhor's got to be careful though. If he goes down there, that's a big problem, and this is where Global Esports looking for the final few kills, making sure they're not losing anyone. This is maximum value. Even the late death on Bumbarapa that costs time, and you can start to see now Savage has the Earth Shatter available, and snowballing the rest of the ultimates on defense is the name of the game for Global Esports.
That's Global Esports really knowing the limit of this position as well. They don't overextend there. They don't push for too long, for too far. They know when Bumbarapa is going to be respawning, so they start backing off and advance that so that they're back in position here as Giant Lynx have to start the whole process over again.
And I gotta say, Bumbarapa is kind of the shining beacon here in terms of losing that last fight because he's at least got some ultimate charge to work with for Giant Lynx. Maybe they can force this fight long enough, he will get that grab, but speaking of grabs, Lil Rex is ready.
That's the thing, Giant Lynx, if they make that same rotation onto this high ground, they could find some of their members don't quite end up making it. They get stuck up in a grab.
Oh, it's a kill.
Oh, nice pickup with the fire strike there. Savage finishing the job, and again, Sadistic early casualty. Nice counter trade though on Azure. That actually really hampers Global Esports' mobility, but ultimates are going to be the real defining factor of this fight.
And Giant Lynx might just want to go in. Bumbarapa his grab, already gone.
That's so rough. One of the few things they had to work with here. Plus that Transcendence already used. Now that it's running out, now Global Esports could commit the ultimate. Xenofly does it again. Brilliant knockdown of the shield there to make sure that self-destruct can come through. And Global Esports again, just without really breaking a sweat.
Xenofly, the old faithful on the self-destruct multi-kill there as well. Global Esports, 142 on that defense now. Giant Lynx are definitely running out of time to attack, and we look at that massive time back at 6:15, and you already are definitely not going to be able to match it. I think Giant Lynx would be happy to even make it to be at this rate.
Yeah, honestly, 1 minute 30 left on the clock, and again, they're going to have to make a relatively long rotation here by the time they're in position. They're still going to be behind in ultimates.
Yeah, look at Luminous A's as the member to maybe turn things around for the squad, and maybe a little bit of magic out of Sage and God to even the score against Xenofly and self-destruct kills, but something's going to happen right now. We're already going to demec.
Yeah, they are able to use the self-destruct to preserve it, but Shadow unfortunately goes straight into Luminous A's shield, or Savage shield rather. Panny's got picked off earlier as well, so it's just not looking good for Giant Lynx no matter how you slice it. Now Luminous A is going to drop. It's a massive numbers advantage out here on the point for Global Esports, who still have a Transcendence if things really start getting hairy. Well, they decide hairy is now. They've spotted Bigfoot. Giant Lynx still losing members here. Good counter trade on Little Rags, but that might not be enough on its own. They have the closer respawns, but they need to be getting a few more kills than this if they want to make that stick.
And Global Esports getting such insane value out of their defensive plays as well. You see Savage there holding up a shield. He blocks out the self-destruct damage from Sage and God. Then also the Earth Shadow coming through from Luminous A's in the same swing, in the same basically position that he was standing in. It's just absolutely insane that Giant Lynx are not able to get anything done right now. Graviton Surge will be their only weapon remaining and what will be possibly their last fight.
And again, Giant Lynx, it takes so long and they still don't even have an advantageous position by the time they get there into the fight itself. Now finally squared up on the point. Shadow goes out underneath the Reinhardt.
Xenofly, wow.
Xenofly gets in behind. So that's going to be all she wrote, I dare say, for this defense. Xenofly now so consistent with getting these self-destruct kills through. If it's not one, it's the other. They get the shadows through, they get self-destructs, they get grabs, they get everything, and Giant Lynx get nothing.
You even saw a Diva eat another Diva's mech there as well, which is a very
Don't
interesting
even know
kill feed.
How that's possible.
It's not, but hey, sometimes it be.
That's a big meal as well, if you think about it.
You know,
It's a lot of
take that whole thing.
It's a lot, like when it's like projectiles, she's shooting the projectiles down. Like that's how that works. That feels like it makes a little bit more sense. When it's like a whole mech, it's like, really? Like, what? You shot the whole thing to pieces before it hit. Like, what?
Are you sure, sir? This is a meal for 5 people.
I know my limits.
Don't tell me how much.
Pull up to the drive-through. It's like, yeah, I'll get.
I'll let you know if
get
it's a
2
big
Big
meal.
Mac combos and what do you want, by the way? Well, look,
I want to. If I'm Giant Lynx, I want a map victory because they only got 1 left now.
well, the Global Esports are hungry. They want all 4. So
Seems that way, and you now get further and further away. We look at again. Go back to Oasis. It's winnable.
Yeah.
Going to City Centre, I'm fairly certain within the last few fights at City Centre, things maybe go slightly better for Giant Lynx. You know, they do actually take Oasis. That's a map for them. Going into Eichenwalde, one-sided mostly, but they do manage to kind of push into C. Well, Sky, I mean, this is ridiculous. This is now super one-sided for Global Esports. You're starting to wonder now what kind of momentum is left remaining. Let's take a look now. One of the last couple of fights, I believe this is the second to last fight that we saw.
yes, this is Sage and God, the forced DMAC. It's all the little things.
Oh, look at this
All we've
block.
just scored. That was brilliant from Savage. Just
It wasn't even really intended.
right
Look
in
at this.
perfect position. It's just.
It's just kind of casually like he's looking at the self-destruct
yeah.
and he's like, oh, you're the shadows here.
hello.
Okay,
yeah,
let me just
absolutely brilliant.
catch 2.
This is why the Giant Lynx went extinct. Couldn't get enough food.
It's like if you're a fisherman, you got the net out, you catch the one fish, the other one just hops in your net.
Like,
oh, thank you.
I was going to say it's more like you're a fisherman and you've got like a massive catch of fish and also a treasure chest. It's like, oh, all right. Well then. Well, did anyone ever actually bury treasure?
In what world are you looking for both? Like, I'm
Is that a
fishing,
thing
but I'm also...
that ever really...
Two things don't really... I don't know if they go together that well, but...
I don't know. I mean, if anyone's gonna find treasure in the ocean, actually a fisherman is far more likely to do it than a pirate. Because, like, at least the fisherman is, like, trawling underneath the surface of the water. Pirates are just, like, map. Where does it, like... That feels like a very unreliable thing. Like...
What do you mean?
I don't know, but
literally,
like,
it tells you where it is.
But does anyone actually bury treasure ever? Like,
you know what that is? You know what that is in the real world?
Than...
Real world burying treasure is just having an offshore bank account, because that's what that is essentially at the end of the day.
I think you're going to say time capsules, but you know what you said makes a lot more sense.
It is, because you have a lot of money that's illegal, and you're like, I just got to bury this. This is my bank account. It's just under the ground.
And a lot of those tax havens are on island nations as well. So it is kind of like taking your your ill-gotten gains to some place in the middle of the ocean.
Your pirate map is on your phone.
Look
on your smartphone is your map.
Exactly. It is. This is the modern version of the high seas and piracy. Exactly.
All right, well, we got to get to Escort now, which is going to be the position for GE to maybe clean up the 4-0, or for Giant Lynx to finish this season with a bang. One map remains. It's going to be an Escort, so let's go ahead and figure out what that's all about.
Welcome to Watchpoint Gibraltar. This is Escort. Two teams face off as either defenders or attackers. This is the payload. The attacking team has a limited amount of time to escort the payload along a set path containing 3 checkpoints. The payload only moves forward when an attacker stands near it. Defenders can delay the payload's movement by standing nearby at the same time. To get moving again, attackers must clear away the defenders by force. Every time the payload reaches a checkpoint, the attackers score 1 point and gain additional time on the clock. If even one attacker is near the payload when the clock runs out, the game enters overtime. This extends play indefinitely until the attackers are either cleared off the payload or they gain more time by reaching a checkpoint. The round ends when the payload reaches the destination or when time runs out. Teams switch sides each round. Whichever team scores the most points and escorts the payload farthest wins.
And our fourth and final map of this evening for this opening match is going to take place on Rialto. And I do wonder now for Global Esports, do they go back to some DPSs? Because it didn't quite work for them in Eichenwalde. Well, Sky was a resounding success, you'd say, probably on that attacking phase. Now Rialto, a lot more opportunity to maybe bring that out again. And I would say for them, good opportunity to really test the waters and see if this is going to work.
That's the thing. If you want to stress test a team composition before playoffs, this is literally your last opportunity to do so. And I too would like to see them just at least try some of the things here. We have seen some variation on Rialto. Look, we do still predominantly see 3-3 versus 3-3, but we have seen some double sniper compositions, and we've seen them work to resounding success.
Yeah, we've also seen, you know, a decent amount of maybe fire come through as well. We've seen, you know, like you mentioned, a lot of double sniper. Orissa's still a decent pick here as well. I think there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of teams. But also, I wouldn't be super surprised if both teams just took the gentleman's agreement here and went 3-3.
I do like the Omnic gondola drivers, because in actual Venice, a lot of the gondola drivers will sing a little bit, and I'm just imagining a singing Omnic gondola driver that's just blasting EDM.
And 8 bits.
Yeah, it's just chiptune, cruising down the canals.
And very quickly, the snipers are going to change here, and it will be the gentleman's handshake. And did you know back in the day, when you see a 3-3 comp, you probably think this is the cheese. Nowadays, anything except this is considered cheese.
Yeah. Oh, how times have changed. Hey, remember Death Ball?
This is now considered a gentlemanly duel.
Yeah. It's like how boxing's changed. And it sucks now. Anyway, Goats is great. I love goats.
Projecting right there. No.
Yeah, my boxing career failed. Glass jaw, jelly legs. Giant Lynx. Slowly loosen the fight here. There we go. Finally it starts to come apart. There's going to be the tanks getting dropped down. And I mean, it just honestly felt like a matter of time there. It was all sort of pitched for ages, but Global Esports weren't actually getting forced back at any point.
Speaking of jelly legs there, you can sort of see Giant Lynx kind of moving backwards, slowly pacing there, unable to find the opportunities, and they kind of fall over and, I don't know, bang their head or something. They do have an opportunity here to maybe stop this card in time, but LYNX is in position to grab and he uses it.
It's a Three Stooges slapstick kind of gig, and that's already 2 down, unfortunately. Now 3, and, well, that's your Three Stooges. Don't know what the other 3 are all about there, but that's all 6 dead.
And sadly enough, Giant Lynx, you know, support ultimate's not coming up on time. They maybe had the Transcendence earlier. They could have possibly defended or had some more ultimates used from Global Esports as well. The very deadly Xenofly self-destruct is now available, and that's got to be that big weapon that if you're Giant Lynx, you've certainly felt the damage out of this entire match.
Now Giant Lynx still just trying to push back on, force Global Esports off this cart. Really, again, this is where that lack of proactivity hurts them. They need to actually be willing to move forward, commit some ultimates, maybe get into the thick of the fight and force something out of Global Esports.
And they're nearly on 6 ultimates as well, so this is fight number 3 where they can actually build up something. And they should be looking to use something here. Here comes that bomb.
Self-destruct laid out. Doesn't get anything this time, but on the front lines, Rocket's going to go down. That's a nice double pickup, though. Predicated on the back of Luminous A's self-destruct, plus the grab out from Boombarapa, and they are looking pretty good in this fight, to be fair. So, Global Esports finally going to get forced off this payload. Pretty expensive fight all around. So Giant Lynx will be pretty happy with that one.
And Sergeant got there. Self-destruct being played in. Luminous A's 5-strike kill. And Giant Lynx able to find the necessary picks inside of actually the Transcendence out of Xenoflux, importantly. So it wasn't a free fight for Global Esports, and being stopped here is now going to be the first sign of real life on the defense for Giant Lynx, which is something they haven't really been able to do on either Eichenwalde or Volsky.
Global Esports now just looking to regain possession of the payload. Rocket is high and dry, and now he's lying on his back. Little unfortunate, but too far forward. Savage, that's a bit of a risky charge, but he doesn't end up getting punished for it. Too few members of Giant Lynx left to actually finish him off, and suddenly the gong rings out the other way. Global Esports going to get a wipe. And
this is one of those scenarios where if you look on paper and you look at the two teams, how they position, what ultimates they have, Giant Lynx, if they block the Shatter up, which can be done, Luminous Ace has the shield at the right place. Sound Barrier comes through even if people get hit. Maybe they still win, but here comes that grab.
It's a long way to go to get that Transcendence in among the team, and Savage getting bumped up into the air means Giant Lynx do get one through, but immediately traded back. Currently 2 for 2, both sides, but Global Esports are the ones lacking the 2 tanks, and that could end up hurting them when you consider Luminous Ace has that Earth Shatter still. But Xenofly again! Able to replicate the success, picks up another 2, and suddenly the shoe's on the other foot. It's Global Esports continue marching forward.
And it's the Global Esports supports that stay alive, and you notice that Azure and Xenoflux there, and as the self-destruct comes through, Azure pops them up in the air, the alley-oop play, manages to get the double for Xenofly, and now Giant Lynx, what again, could have been a very defendable position, could have been a fight win for them, could have been more time off the clock. It's just going back in the pocket of Global Esports, where even when it looks dire for them, they're able to get the wins.
You're dead right about the Lucio there. In spite of how it goes in the cinematic, no diva actually does it on her own in the game of Overwatch. You always need some kind of setup.
Yeah.
And Global Esports have done that so beautifully time and time again. In the
even in the cinematic, Danny Lim was there to help Diva anyway, so.
Exactly, you actually do still need someone else, so here you go. It's going to be a nicely placed grab, though, out of Little Rax. Look at that. Again, just the setup is brilliant. They bait Giant Lynx forward. They're going to get a second team wipe in a row here. Gong to ring out, music to mine ears. Global Esports honestly looking poised to cap.
And they have more ults coming up online as well. Giant Lynx, if they really want to have some sort of a real defense here on C, they need to start bleeding out these big important ultimates. They need a fight at 6. They need something to play on.
They're just
Savage's positioning.
Struggling. Yeah, it's really nice out around the side, and that's going to be the grab out from Boombarapa. But oh, they do get bubble kitting. Nicely done. Decent placement on the biotic grenade, but it's still a 1-for-1. So Giant LYNX not necessarily ahead, and now Sergeant God and Luminous A's bleeding from the mouth here. Sound Barrier gives Global Esports plenty of extra legs in the fight. Self-destruct from Sergeant God. He will not remech, nor will he get any kills from it. So Giant LYNX just continuing to lose members. Luminous A's dying just before his Sound Barrier from Rocket. Bombarapa getting drilled down by his counterpart in Little Rax. And Global Esports looking like they're going to be able to march this one over the line with just a few more kills.
Boostio.
Yeah, never gets sold. Xenofly's taking a nap.
Yeah, Rocket's already down. I mean, it's not really working too much. Earthshatter coming through, catches one.
Yeah, and no follow-up even on that one.
No members to follow up.
That's the thing. Suddenly Bombarapa again just kind of alone. Giant LYNX have done a good job of running the clock out here, though. This has been about 1 minute. What was originally looking to be about 3 minutes is now just a bit below 2, but Global Esports will get that cap.
And it just feels like Global Esports have more and more ults to line up. Just resources flowing through, they keep rotating through and through. Savage had a decent angle to get that initial shatter in, was found out and blocked, but was still able to do a lot of damage follow-up anyway. And you sort of see the scenario where Bionade coming through, landing on Bubble Kitty, actually got that first kill, which kind of maybe gave Giant LYNX a bit of a fighting chance. And I don't know, it just still feels like Global Esports had so much to work with after that. Bubble Kitty comes back as Tracer, they have a lot of members, and Giant LYNX slow down massively in the counter-trade department, which unfortunately means they don't get to hold on to C.
Well, well, well. Where have Giant LYNX seen this before?
On well.
Yeah, well, I was going to say in Germany instead of Italy. I mean, Eigenwalder might not be... No, it is definitely in Germany, never mind.
Ready for battle.
We do know that it is categorically in Germany. Do we know that Rialto is definitely in Italy, or is it just meant to imply Italy? Because this could be, like, right in the south of France on the border.
I mean, this is literally like...
I mean, it's obviously
like
a
modern
pastiche
Venice.
of Venice.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't say modern Venice, just literally Venice. I mean, futuristic Venice, maybe, but it is obviously a pastiche of Venice. But do we know for a fact that it's in Italy specifically in Overwatch's universe?
Might be the future, but they still haven't fixed the problem with all the water around. Oh.
No, that's global warming. That's the Venice. Venice actually doesn't exist anymore, and now Rialto has become the flooded tourist city.
So actually, we're actually quite high above sea level. What would have been the original
We're actually in
sea
the
level.
Alps.
I saw how the water's...
The very north of Italy.
Climate change, guys, it's real.
Woo! Watch out, yeah. This PSA brought to you by... But you know what's also scary? Speaking of the globe, it's Global Esports. That was a weak segue, but take it.
Who on this very defense now, going back to these neutrals, Giant LYNX haven't really won one since Oasis, and already looking for maybe a bit of a flank around play, but the cart stopping super early, and we're starting to see now the difference between the two teams where Global Esports were in this position. They pushed the Giant LYNX to clean them up. Giant LYNX are going to try and do the same thing.
Yeah, and the thing is, Global Esports are ready for the proactive rotation. They actually pepper a lot of damage down. They nearly lost some members, but not quite. They end up getting a stun and a DMAC on Sergeant God, and now they can just start piling on the pressure. They have a decent surround, good DMAC on Xenofly, but honestly, look at the difference here. It's in where these members are positioned, who's able to actually connect blows. It's Little Rax and Savage able to get so much work done as Giant LYNX make their rotation.
And so many members on the Global Esports side went super low there. Savage nearly went down early. If Giant LYNX had gotten either of those at the beginning and didn't have their own DMAC, look, they managed to counter-trade that one, but it's still 5v5, and they weren't able to win the 5v5. Now looking at ultimates, because the fight went on for quite a while, it's Global Esports who are, unsurprisingly, definitely ahead.
And Xenofly was able to remake as well, long before this fight was even close to breaking out again. So now Giant LYNX coming up for another round, and Global Esports still absolutely on top of them.
I think Giant LYNX can actually match here. Just need to wait for Luminous Haze to get the Earthshatter as well, but Lil Rax is done waiting.
Double eat on the grab. Some hungry hippos here tonight. Global Esports now need to rotate through the rest of these ultimates. Double Transcendence, double Earth Shatter, and no one quite the better off for it. This is the only ultimate Global Esports have to their advantage. The self-destruct doesn't get anything. Sergeant God, though, is going to lose his spec before he can get his own self-destruct off. So Global Esports, that one little advantage, that one little edge they have over Giant LYNX is turning into a numbers advantage here.
And they're now using Sound Barrier, but slightly later than I expected. Giant LYNX are kind of on the back foot as yours responded.
Yeah, they used it largely to try and rescue some members here that were getting low, but honestly, in that time, Savage gets himself an Earth Shatter, picks up a kill for it, but does go down. So Giant LYNX now actually coming up on rotation. Global Esports know that they're going to have to give up some ground here.
And this is where respawn advantage goes to Giant LYNX. Luminous A's, he wants some kills.
Yeah, really quick to pull the trigger there to get a couple of members. Xenofly will get demexed as well. It's a nice moment there from Giant Lynx to recognize they actually had an advantage and put on the pressure.
And that's the thing, you expected them to lose more members, and for, you know, one of the few times in the series, Global Esports are not really getting the maximum value out of all their ultimates or anything like that. Bumbarapa lands the grab.
And self-destruct. It only gets the one, but again, this is enough to create a numbers advantage. But Luminous Ace, by charging forward, actually left himself, kind of hung himself out to dry, as it were. Savage, though, a bit too low to get into the thick of that follow-up on that grab. So no one going down on the side of Giant Lynx thanks to the grab itself. Xeon Flux is not where he ought to be right now.
He's getting in the thick of it.
It's going to be the cap. Oh, there's a bump.
Just needs a little bit of convincing there. In fact, I actually think if you leave Bubble Kitty there alive, it might even be a worse fate because it doesn't get to regroup with his team. In either case, Giant Lynx are making some decent progress here, where, you know, starting to look a little bit more like Eichenwalde than, say, Volskaya, which is still a plus, especially when you consider there are some ults to play with, some momentum to work with. Giant Lynx need to continue this momentum, though, if they want something done.
Yeah, this certainly doesn't feel as one-sided as some of our other situations. It doesn't feel like it's Global will win. The question is when. Actually, looks like Giant Lynx, if they can keep up this momentum, might be in for a real shot here. Self-destruct up. Over the top from Satchok. No magic this time. Shatter out from Luminous Ace. Maybe a little overzealous. He ends up getting traded and not in the way you'd want. But Savage's own Earth Shatter leaves him too vulnerable. He goes down and suddenly, despite connecting with a couple of members, they don't actually have a position to follow up. And Global Esports end up overextended and picked apart.
And that was a posthumous ult from Savage as well. Just to kind of, sorry, from, well, both really. Yeah. Luminous Ace first to kind of set up his team.
Dead man
and that Shatter kind of set up that initial kill into Bubble Kitty. Importantly, that Giant Lynx were able to kind of snowball forward, kill Savage as he tries to Earth Shatter himself, not getting too much out of that, hoping that maybe this grab from Lil Rex is better.
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't have a self-destruct to combo with, so, well, that's one. Savage is happy to take that one for one. Bumbarapa down, so it's kind of paid off here. This is where Global Esports actually have a numbers advantage, unlike the Rhine for Rhine trade, so there they go, DMEC on Sage and God. He's going to have to take a dive. Oh, Lil Rex ends up in the drink. They need to be careful not to overextend. Rocket picks up a second one. Suddenly Global Esports going to have to regroup.
He puts Lil Rex into the grave or something. He puts him into the water and then throws Azure, I believe, right into the sky, so puts him onto the moon maybe. And Giant Lynx finally getting a little bit more momentum back in, and there's a couple of missing members for Global Esports before they're really at full power for this defense.
This is, it's close to even as you could really hope for here as Giant Lynx. Self-destruct layered up. Forces Transcendence. They don't quite get anything just from that ultimate. Now Global Esports rotating into a lot of tools. Shatter's going to be first out. They do get Bumbarapa, but unable to get the follow-up just yet. Now looking to rotate maybe into a grab soon. Bumbarapa's going to have his up first, though, and there it goes. Looking to get the follow-up. It's only on Savage, and there's self-destruct trying to layer on top of it, but nice pick up on Sadistic there again. It is Xenofly getting the work done here. And that sound barrier from Azure was just enough to keep Savage alive for long enough for them to actually get an advantage.
Giant Lynx had the early lead there. I mean, the Graviton Surge comes through and they can't really pick up the kill, which is really unfortunate because they had basically survived everything else up until then. And for Giant Lynx to kind of back out and lose that fight at this kind of time is probably the worst because 30 seconds remaining, which means it is last fight, and the card is actually far away enough that Global Esports kind of do have a respawn advantage at this point, or at least they're in a neutral spot.
And I mean, hey, they'll take neutral. They've won a lot of neutrals, to be sure. Giant Lynx, though, speaking of neutral, coming in with a numbers advantage, or the ultimate advantage here early.
That lands.
Transcendence, yeah, they do get the Shatter down, but they aren't able to follow it up. And now the counter Shatter and the Transcendence from Xeon Flux to stop any Global Esports members going down while they pressed on that Shatter. And this is looking like Global Esports are going to be able to get that final fight here. Giant Lynx have already got well behind in the members. Bumbarapa will not survive long enough to get his grab off, and Global Esports will indeed make it the full 4-0.
And writing the last chapter on the season for Giant Lynx as well as they close that book for at least the first season of 2019. 0-7 is
a sequel.
Well, we hope there will be a sequel, but you know, comes down to the ratings at the end of the day, a box office. Maybe in this case, 0-7 will be the final result for Giant Lynx, and Global Esports going to move themselves up to a 4-3 for their final game of that regular season. Again, locking themselves in 2 playoffs, and I would probably say here as now more of a definite number 4 positioning as well, but yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, at the end of the day, look, it's the end we expected, I would say. The result we expected out of Global Esports. And I believe indeed with that win, even if Jupiter win their match, even if they go 4-0, the map differential cannot put them up into 4th place. So unless those teams at the top there drop maps, this is effectively our final standings that we are looking at here. And honestly, that's kind of a surprise in some ways. There is actually potential that Xavier could overtake Jupiter. It does depend on how their respective matches go, but I think on the one hand, we have what we felt was the 5 stronger teams in that top 5 there, and they do kind of feel like they're a little bit of an echelon above Xavier, but there's also a part of it that is incredibly surprising in that we haven't really had a clear front runner. Even in terms of a kind of power ranking type feeling, it's shifted and molded around a lot. Even if we finish off here with Talon in 1st place, which is all but guaranteed, they only have that one more match to go, which is our next one. Honestly, I don't know that they're necessarily the strongest team actually coming into playoffs.
Oh, well, certainly we have to figure that out as we move along to future matches, but I think to sort of, really, let's just finalize
put a bow on it.
This last match here, as well. I think Global Esports have had a very interesting season where if you look at the 3 losses they've had, it was to the 3 teams above them, being Talon Esports, Nova Monster Shield, and Cyclone Coupling. And probably the most surprising one you say out of those 3 would have been to Cyclone Coupling, who had a really kind of wacky season itself in terms of, very interesting results, but ultimately still putting themselves at a 5-1, which is great. And for Giant Lynx, we kind of felt like right out the gate, they were going to be, at best, maybe dark horses, but definitely underdogs for the season. I think it was from the loss to Kicks, which was an 0-4 as well, that, you really start to think, okay, the season is very much, if it wasn't at risk before, it's like now definitely in the danger zone. And 0-7 is, unfortunately for them, the truth is not super unexpected. I think this is now going to be yet another learning experience for the members on this team. Many of them, they've played in multiple seasons of Contenders, and only time will tell if they make it through trials to sort of continue that Contenders journey.
That's the thing. Ultimately, you do always want to see these players, learn and grow and come back stronger as time goes by. But at the end of the day, this is another very unfortunate ending, I think, for these players here on the side of Giant Lynx. But on the side of Global Esports, you would dare say that this series has, at least up until this point, been a relative success. How they go into the playoffs, well, only time will tell that.
Speaking of playoffs, our next 2 teams are already guaranteed in there, and one of them is currently sitting at the #1 spot. Talon Esports, we kind of already teased this, but can they maintain that position? Can they have top seed going into playoffs? We'll have to find out after this break.